Hey folks, David here, TexasHornsFans.com. So the claim in conspiracy theory basically goes something like this, that Colt McCoy purposefully and selfishly kept himself out of the 2009 National Championship game against Alabama to preserve his draft stock or to not jeopardize his NFL career. And that little conspiracy theory has been hanging around for more than 10 years now. So we're going to look at 5 reasons why that claim is totally insane. So don't forget to subscribe, drop your comments below, let me know what you think about these points. But like we said, that has been floating around now for more than 10 years. And I think it's definitely time that we put that to bed and completely debunk that theory. So definitely hope you like this video. First of all, let's go back and look at the hit that caused the injury that this whole thing came from.
Play. Now the option look, and Colt McCoy bangs into an offensive lineman who was being pushed back by Dederick. Brandon Dederick was in there, and so too was Darius, number 57. Darius, big-time defensive player for the Tide. He is.
Yeah, big hit Marcel Darius in this football game against this kind of offense. Marcel Darius is the best Alabama defensive lineman as far as creating pressure.
Colt is hurt.
So, arguably, that one play and that hit altered the course of Texas Longhorns football for more than a decade. It was Colt McCoy's last play in college, and it was his last play as a Texas Longhorn. So, a quote from Colt that he wrote in a Players Tribune article a few years ago about that play. He said, "But for one reason or another, this tackle was different. This hit would change my whole life. I remember immediately after the collision, my only thought was, what just happened? I didn't have any pain in my right arm. I didn't have any feeling at all. It was just entirely numb." And, you know, obviously, if you go back and remember what was happening then, you know, basically he said he could throw the ball, he could move his arm, he just felt nothing. He had zero control over his arm. If you've ever had a pinched nerve, or if you've ever had any type of nerve issues, especially around your neck or shoulder area, you know exactly what that feels like. It's just a loss of control, a numbness, and just an overall really weird feeling. Sometimes it does come with some sharp pains and kind of shooting pains, but it really kind of affects so many other parts of your body because, you know, obviously it's all connected. Couple things, you know, obviously a lot of people say that was a horrible play call, where it's basically like kind of a zone sweep run, a design quarterback run that Texas had run countless times. You know, the top QB, you know, run call for Texas was really the zone read, but Colt just kind of took it over to the side, and Marcel Darius, the defensive tackle, just came down and really popped him kind of in the side, but back shoulder. So here are 5 reasons I think why that conspiracy theory that Colt McCoy could have come back into the game, but he just chose to sit out to preserve his NFL career or preserve his draft stock. Number 1 is that wasn't the first time or the last time Colt had a nerve issue in the same area. If you remember back in 2006 when he was a freshman against Kansas State, it was the opening drive for Texas, and they were down there near the goal line. He tried to run it into the end zone, kind of lunge it in, and he was met almost directly head-to-head, a helmet hit that popped his neck back. He had to sit out the rest of the game with a pinched nerve in his neck. He also was never even fully recovered after that, heading into the A&M game, and I believe there was a 2-week break there. In that A&M game, he threw 3 interceptions. He was not fully healed from that whatsoever. And then in the NFL, it was 2014 when he was with the Washington Redskins, it was a game against the Giants. He injured that area again with a very similar issue, and it was late in the season in December, but he was put on the injured reserve list after that with the Redskins. But it was the same area, same neck and shoulder issue. Now, I'm not saying that the injury in the title game is directly related to those, but it's certainly not like it was some kind of phantom injury that he was just blaming on a nerve issue. This type of issue and this type of injury had come in his career, college and NFL, a few times. So it's not like it just came out of nowhere. And number 2 main point is that Colt McCoy was never going to be a high NFL draft pick anyway. He was always projected to be somewhere around late second round, maybe into the 4th round. He actually ended up being the 21st pick in the 3rd round. So it's not like he was all of a sudden going to become a first-round pick, even if he did stay in the game and win the game. So he didn't really have a whole lot to gain or lose when it comes to the NFL draft anyway. I believe he was the 4th or 5th quarterback taken in that draft, and coincidentally, he's actually the last remaining quarterback in the NFL from that draft. Because he's still in the NFL. He's had over a 10-year career in the NFL. He signed a 4-year deal with the Cleveland Browns that was, at the time, worth up to $5 million. So about normal for that draft slot. Typically, once you fall out of the 1st round to the early 2nd round, there's a pretty decent-sized gap there in terms of rookie deals and how much money those draft picks make throughout their career. So there's not a whole lot of difference between a late 2nd round pick, even well into the 4th round. There's just not that big of a gap there. So he didn't really have anything big to gain, from the NFL. And also, keep this in mind, what does it signal to the NFL or to coaches and scouts that he's so hurt that he has to sit out in the biggest game of his life? To me, that sends a worse message than if he went in. So what is he preserving there exactly? I don't understand what sort of great draft status he's preserving there. To me, if you want to improve your draft status, you go back into the game. So if you're claiming that he did all this to preserve his draft stock, to me that's a complete contradiction. And also considering point number 3, what else would he have done? Okay, if you don't have control of your arm and you're supposed to throw the ball 30 to 40 times or more against the best defense in the country, what would you have expected of him? He can't just go in there and hand the ball off. Texas was going to have to throw the ball. And I think we all know the game would have turned out a lot differently had he been able to stay in the game. But what was he going to do if he went back in? Just kind of toss the ball randomly if he had no control over his arm? Unless you believe that he's a complete liar and then he had total control over his arm. So I also think that he had a lot more to gain by going back into the game and playing if he could have. Remember, again, if you're making the claim that he could have gone back into the game, but he held himself out to preserve his draft status or his NFL career, to me, he has more to lose by sitting out than he does by coming back in and playing. And that's the 4th main point I had. Because at a school like Texas, and we see this with any Texas legend, they can hang around Texas and just leverage that college career for the rest of their life. If he wanted to, Colt McCoy can just hang around Austin and be Colt McCoy for the rest of his life. He's the winningest college quarterback of all time. He's the most prolific passer in Texas history. And so, to me, that's more long-term value than what you potentially could do in the NFL. Now, he's had a 10-year NFL career. He's been a career backup nearly all his career, but he has had that longevity. So, but playing in the national championship game, winning the national championship game, to me, is more long-term value than any sort of injury risk that you're trying to, preserve for the NFL. And the fifth main point, and which I think is the strongest, or should be the strongest for any Longhorns fans, is that ain't Colt. That's not him. He loved Texas. He came into the program as a 3-star recruit from a small school, following in Vince Young's footsteps, right? And he developed into the most prolific passer in school history and the winningest college quarterback of all time. And if you're going to make the claim that he all of a sudden got selfish in the biggest game of his life as a team leader and Heisman candidate, and throughout his whole career, last game of his college career, biggest game of his life, if you're going to make the claim that he all of a sudden got selfish and started thinking about the NFL, at what other point in his career did he ever indicate that that's the type of player he was? He never did, right? He always played hard. He always played with fire. His best friend was Jordan Shipley. They played together. Colt was a natural team leader. He's exactly the type of person you want representing your program. So the claim that he suddenly out of nowhere got selfish and wanted to think about his self and his own NFL career over his team and over his own college legacy, that he would have risked damaging his name for his college legacy, which again, to me, has more long-term value than any potential money you could make in the NFL. Colt has the rest of his life to be Colt McCoy, Texas Longhorns legend. There's a lot of value in that. The NFL isn't the end-all be-all, okay, when it comes to just contracts. Colt can leverage his college career way more than he'll ever be able to leverage his NFL career. So he's just not that type of player. I mean, a lot of people also claim that, well, his dad made him sit out. Again, number one, you have no proof of that. And you know what? Maybe his dad, maybe they did talk about it in the locker room, and maybe he said, it's probably not good to go back in if you can't. Because what's he going to do if he has no feeling or no control over his throwing arm? Okay? So those are my main points. Link in the description to an article that I wrote on this. Drop your comments below. Let me know what you think. Let me know your perception of the play. I was actually at the game with my dad. We actually lucked out and got some tickets to the Big 12 through a connection. We were row 20, 45-yard line, Texas side. So I remember watching Colt, deal with his arm, with his shoulder on the sideline. Obviously just did that, no control, wet noodle, kind of look to it. So, had a first-hand view of what was going on then. So my overall thought about it is that fans are just still pissed off and frustrated that it happened. We all know the game would have turned out differently, and it was even a close game, up until the fourth quarter, really. Garrett Gilbert ended up turning the ball over 4 times, so yeah, it definitely would have turned out differently. I just think a lot of Texas fans are still pissed about it and still hang on to a bogus claim that he purposefully and selfishly kept himself out of the game. So anyway, let me know what you think about it. Those are my thoughts. We'll see you on the next video. Don't forget to head on over to TexasHornsFans.com. You can also drop your comments there below. And then also be sure to follow us on Facebook at that's Facebook Texas Horns Football. We have over 57,000 fans over there, so it's an awesome community. If you're not part of it, get on over there and come chat with us. All right.